Mesopotamia, a single piece of land between two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. It was the birthplace of writing, astrology, mathematics, agriculture, crafts, and trade. In this region, Sumerians saw the construction of the first great cities and the invention of the wheel, the plough, and the brick. However, Mesopotamia was also the arena for the first wars and the formation of the first great armies in history. How did this ancient, advanced civilization come to extinction and fail? Let's start from the beginning. The entire history of Sumerian civilization.
Not many periods in human history are as critical as the dawn of civilization in ancient Mesopotamia. This crucial time, sometimes called the birth of civilization, signifies the beginning of a new phase in human evolution. During this period, people evolved from dispersed bands of hunter-gatherers to settled communities with intricate social structures and rich cultural customs. The country between the rivers, Mesopotamia, was the birthplace of civilization. The lush plains irrigated by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers provided the seeds of human advancement. The Sumerians, the first known civilization in history, rose because of the roots of civilization created in this abundant landscape. The Sumerians first settled in southern Mesopotamia about 4000 BCE, creating the earliest known urban centers and laying the foundation for the rise of civilization. To survive, these ancient Sumerian settlements turned to agriculture, using the rich soil left behind by the river's yearly floods to grow crops like barley, wheat, and dates. The excess food produced by agriculture made labor specialization and population center growth possible, leading to intricate social and economic structures. Among the most significant achievements ascribed to the Sumerians was the development of writing, which transformed record-keeping and communication. In 3500 BCE, the Sumerians created cuneiform, the world's first known writing system. It was composed of wedge-shaped characters pressed into clay tablets. This fantastic invention made it possible to document administrative documents, literary works, and laws, which set the stage for information preservation and generational transfer. Sumerian society became more urbanized as it developed, with thriving city-states established as hubs for trade, culture, and scholarship. Impressive architectural feats, such as ziggurats, temples, and palaces, were shown in cities like Uruk, Ur, and Eridu. These structures functioned as symbols of Sumerian authority and distinction. Complex social hierarchies with kings and priests retaining tremendous authority and influence emerged inside these city-states. The advent of civilization in ancient Mesopotamia was a significant turning point in human history, as people began to live sedentary lives instead of nomadic ones. The foundation for the emergence of complex civilizations that would influence the path of human history for millennia was laid by the creation of cities, the invention of writing, and the creation of intricate social and economic structures. Ancient Mesopotamia's civilization's emergence was a turning point in human history that ushered in a period of advancement and invention. The Sumerians are recognized as the first civilization in history. Their contributions to writing, urbanization, and social structure established the groundwork for other civilizations and the evolution of modern human society. As we explore deeper into the narrative of the Sumerians and their outstanding accomplishments, we learn important lessons about the beginnings of civilization and the ongoing impact of ancient Mesopotamia. Known as the land between the rivers, Mesopotamia has a unique and profound geographic significance in the annals of human civilization. This region in the Middle East is distinguished by its position between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which meet to create one of the planet's most fertile areas. This geographical characteristic was crucial in determining how civilization evolved in antiquity, creating the ideal environment for the emergence of the earliest civilizations known to history. Mesopotamia's vast plains, made fruitful by the yearly flooding of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, are its most remarkable geographical feature. These rivers rise in the mountains of present-day Turkey and flow downstream, depositing nutrient-rich silt that covers the floodplains and builds up a layer of rich soil that is perfect for farming. Frequent river floods restore the soil, guaranteeing a steady supply of nutrients for crops and permitting several harvests all year round. Early human settlers in Mesopotamia were blessed with abundant food supplies and the ability to establish permanent settlements thanks to the region's fertile plains. The diversity of crops cultivated in the rich soil allowed for the production of dates, vegetables, barley, and wheat, which were the staples of the Mesopotamian diet. Due to agriculture, there was an increase in surplus food production, which in turn caused population growth and the formation of permanent communities. In addition to providing agricultural water, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers were essential transportation corridors that promoted trade and communication between various areas. Mesopotamia's early residents created elaborate irrigation systems to collect water from rivers and transfer it to their farms. Reservoirs, dikes, and canals were built to optimize agricultural output and control water flow. These methods of managing water helped the Mesopotamians build prosperous urban centers and enabled them to grow food all year round, even in desert areas. Mesopotamia had great agricultural potential, but was also a hub of trade and commerce in antiquity due to its advantageous position. Mesopotamia acted as a gateway between the East and the West, promoting the interchange of commerce, ideas, and civilizations because of its location at the intersection of Asia, Africa, and Europe. Precious stones, gold, and lumber were among the rich resources that made Mesopotamia an even more critical commercial hub. Mesopotamia had numerous benefits, but it also had drawbacks. The deserts surrounding the area were a natural defense against invasion, shielding the area from outside threats. To maintain agricultural output, these same deserts also faced difficulties due to environmental harshness and water scarcity, necessitating the development of creative water management strategies. Mesopotamia's physical location, close to surrounding areas like Egypt, Anatolia, and the Levant, promoted contact and the exchange of cultures between various civilizations. Due to its different cultures, languages, and customs, Mesopotamia acted as a cross-pollination hub for ideas and the spread of innovations. Mesopotamian civilization benefited from this cross-cultural interchange, which helped shape the country's unique cultural identity. It is impossible to overestimate Mesopotamia's geographical significance. Its strategic location, natural fortifications, and fertile plains created the ideal environment for the emergence of civilization in antiquity. The world's first known civilizations emerged because of the wealth of agricultural resources, the availability of water for irrigation, and the chances for trade and cultural interchange. The persistent significance of geography in influencing the trajectory of human history is underscored by Mesopotamia's position as the birthplace of civilization. The Sumerians are the first people in history to have developed civilization. They originated in southern Mesopotamia, circa 4000 BCE. The Sumerians, the first civilization to be discovered, significantly influenced the development of human history by creating the framework for many inventions and advances that would characterize later societies. Scholars have differing views about the Sumerians' linguistic, cultural, and racial affinities, leaving their origins primarily unknown. While some hypotheses contend that the Sumerians were native to Mesopotamia, others argue that they migrated there and carried the germs of civilization. Whatever their roots, the Sumerians are recognized for founding the first recorded urban settlements and inventing the cuneiform writing system. The rich soil that the Tigris and Euphrates rivers deposited created the perfect environment for agriculture, and this is where the Sumerians made their home in the verdant plains of southern Mesopotamia. They started to construct towns and villages as their population increased. Eventually, these settlements and villages developed into urban centers with dense populations, colossal buildings, and highly developed social structures. Cities like Uruk, Ur, and Eridu developed as centers of commerce, culture, and knowledge, drawing traders, merchants, and academics from all across the region. The Sumerians laid the groundwork for many inventions and advances that would influence the path of human civilization, making numerous significant contributions to it. Their most outstanding lasting contribution is the development of writing, which transformed record-keeping and communication. In 3500 BCE, the Sumerians created the world's first writing system, cuneiform. They did this by pressing wedge-shaped symbols into clay tablets. This incredible accomplishment made it possible to document laws, writings, and official documents, safeguarding Sumerian knowledge and culture for posterity. The Sumerians achieved significant breakthroughs in mathematics, astronomy, building, and writing. Based on the sexagesimal system, they created a sophisticated numerical system that served as the foundation for later mathematical ideas like fractions and algebra. Through their observations of the sky, astronomical events, including eclipses and planetary movements, were identified, and a lunar calendar was created. The Sumerians were known for their colossal buildings, which included city walls, temples, and ziggurats. These magnificent structures represented the might and authority of Sumerian kings and the divine order they were supposed to preserve, and they served both practical and symbolic functions. One of the best examples of the magnificence and intricacy of Sumerian architecture is the great ziggurat of Ur, which is devoted to the moon goddess Nana. A complicated social system that placed kings and priests at the top of the social order defined Sumerian culture. The predominant political entities at the time were city-states, each headed by a king who exercised divine authority. These city-states frequently formed alliances and fought to gain control over territory, resources, and trade routes. The Sumerians, who worshipped a pantheon of gods and goddesses and performed rites and ceremonies to win the divine's favor, had a shared cultural and religious legacy despite their political divides. Even though Sumerian culture eventually crumbled, its influence is still seen today. Numerous discoveries and breakthroughs made by the Sumerians paved the way for later civilizations, impacting everything from art and architecture to law and government. Sumerian ideas such as written law, urban planning, and organized religion have had a lasting influence on modern society, constantly reminding this ancient civilization's significance. Ancient Mesopotamia's civilizational rise signaled the beginning of an era of unheard-of creativity and artistic accomplishment. During this time, several important discoveries, including astrology and the evolution of writing, paved the way for future human growth. In this part, we shall explore the intriguing origins of these inventions and their long-lasting influence on the development of human history. One of the most important contributions of ancient Mesopotamia was the development of writing, which signaled the beginning of written history and established the framework for the intergenerational transfer of information and culture. The Sumerians created cuneiform, the oldest writing system ever discovered, approximately 3500 BCE. With the help of a reed stylus, wedge-shaped characters were pressed into clay tablets to create cuneiform, which gave the developing Mesopotamian city-states a way to communicate and retain records. Cuneiform was first employed for practical papers, including legal, commercial, and administrative records. Over time, it developed into a complex writing system that could convey many ideas, from poetry and literature to scientific and religious works. Writing's development transformed human communication and made it possible to preserve and share knowledge on a never-before-seen scale. Studying heavenly phenomena and how they affect human affairs, or astrology, was fundamental to ancient Mesopotamian religion and culture. The concept that human fate and the cosmos are interrelated is reflected in the earliest known astrological books, which date to the 2nd millennium BCE in Mesopotamia. Mesopotamian astrologers tracked the motions of the planets, stars, and constellations because they thought these celestial bodies greatly impacted people's lives and civilizations. They created intricate divination systems using astronomical omens, reading comets, planetary conjunctions, and eclipses as signs of things to come. Astrology significantly influenced Mesopotamian religion and helped people make decisions about anything from personal problems to statecraft. The Sumerians laid the foundation for numerous ideas still in use today and made significant contributions to mathematics. They used a base 60 notation to create a complex number system based on the sexagesimal system. This approach established the groundwork for subsequent mathematical advancements while simplifying computations requiring fractions, multiplication, and division. The Sumerians created a numerical system and made significant advances in geometry and trigonometry. They also developed methods for erecting structures, measuring land, and surveying celestial bodies. These mathematical advancements were crucial for advancing astronomy and astrology and building colossal temples and ziggurats. The Sumerians were also forerunners in technology, producing many innovations that fundamentally altered daily existence. The wheel, plow, and sail were three of their most influential inventions, revolutionizing trade, transportation, and agriculture in ancient Mesopotamia. When the wheel was created in 3500 BCE, it was possible to develop wheeled vehicles like chariots and carts, making it easier to move people and commodities over great distances. Around the same period, the plow was invented, which made it possible to cultivate the soil more effectively. This increased agricultural production and aided in the development of urban areas. The sail developed later and transformed marine exploration and trade, creating new opportunities for business and cross-cultural interaction. Some of antiquity's most remarkable architectural accomplishments, including colossal buildings like ziggurats, temples, and palaces, may be found in Mesopotamia. The Sumerians were expert builders who used cutting-edge building methods to produce magnificent structures that perfectly captured the majesty and complexity of their culture. Massive stepping pyramids devoted to the gods and ziggurats were among the most famous buildings in ancient Mesopotamia. They functioned as administrative and religious hubs. The most well-known example is the Great Ziggurat of Ur, which stood as a testament to the prosperity and might of the ancient city of Ur. The advent of writing, astrology, and other breakthroughs in ancient Mesopotamia signaled a turning point in human history. It established the groundwork for the subsequent rise of civilization and the formation of modern human society. The development of writing transformed record-keeping and communication, while astrology offered perceptions of the nature of the universe and how it affects human affairs. Mesopotamian culture advanced further thanks to innovations in mathematics, technology, and architecture, all of which still left a lasting legacy. We come to appreciate our predecessors' inventiveness, resourcefulness, and fortitude, as well as the long-lasting effects of their inventions on the development of human history as we learn more about the history of ancient Mesopotamia. The emergence of city-states and the urbanization process in ancient Mesopotamia was a critical turning point in human history. As populations increased and settlements spread, Mesopotamia became a patchwork of vibrant urban centers with distinct personalities, cultures, and governmental structures. This chapter will discuss the phenomenon of city-states and urbanization in ancient Mesopotamia, along with the evolution of these vibrant societies and their effects on advancing civilization. City-states and urbanization significantly influenced the rise of human civilization in ancient Mesopotamia. Urbanization and societal complexity changed Mesopotamia's geography, bringing about the emergence of autonomous city-states and the growth of thriving urban centers. As we continue to explore the story of city-states and urbanization, we learn important lessons about the dynamics of ancient Mesopotamian civilization and the lasting impact of its thriving urban centers. The Sumerian city-states of Uruk and Ur are enduring reminders of the sophistication and vitality of prehistoric Mesopotamian culture. These ancient Mesopotamian cities became significant political, economic, and cultural centers that shaped human history and left a lasting impression on the region. In this part, we shall explore the intriguing tale of these Sumerian city-states' growth following their ascent from modest beginnings to important power hubs. A significant figure in the history of ancient Mesopotamia is Uruk, which is frequently cited as one of the earliest real towns in history. Situated in southern Mesopotamia, close to the contemporary Warqa city in modern-day Iraq, Uruk became a significant urban center during the Uruk period, c. 4000–3100 BCE. The city's quick development and wealth were facilitated by its advantageous location on the banks of the Euphrates River and its proximity to a rich agricultural area. Initially centered on a sacred precinct honoring the city's patron goddess, Inanna, Uruk was a modest village. With time, the settlement grew farther and broader, until it covered more than 2.5 square kilometers and had tens of thousands of residents. Uruk was surrounded by an enormous wall made of mud brick that stretched over 9 kilometers and was broken up by defensive towers to act as both a barrier against outside threats and a reminder that Uruk was a fortified city. Massive buildings like the White Temple and the Inanna Ziggurat dominated the cityscape of Uruk, which was well known for its unique urban design and architecture. Uruk's religious life revolved around the Inanna Ziggurat, a monument to the goddess Inanna that represented the city's might and prosperity. Perched atop the ziggurat, the White Temple was a hallowed area where religious rites and ceremonies were carried out, and sacrifices to the gods were made. Being one of the biggest cities in ancient Mesopotamia, Uruk was essential to trade and commerce. Traders, artists, and merchants from all over the region flocked to the city, a hive of economic activity, to purchase, sell, and trade goods. Due to Uruk's advantageous location on the Euphrates River, trade routes connecting Mesopotamia with other regions were easily accessible, allowing for the easy interchange of products, ideas, and cultural practices. During the early dynastic period, ca. 2900–2334 BCE, Ur, a significant Sumerian city-state, flourished close to the modern city of Sumeria in modern-day Iraq. Like Uruk, Ur's wealth was derived from its advantageous location on the Euphrates River and its easy access to affluent agricultural areas. Around 2900 BCE, Ur became a significant urban center and the capital of the Sumerian city-state of Ur. This marked the beginning of Ur's climb to prominence. King Masanapada oversaw the expansion of Ur's realm and power, forging diplomatic ties and commercial exchanges with nearby city-states. The metropolis gained recognition for its affluence, refinement, and artistic accomplishments, leading to the nickname, the Glittering Jewel of the South. One of the most famous buildings in ancient Mesopotamia, the Great Ziggurat of Ur, is among the city's many remarkable architectural accomplishments. The enormous stepping pyramid known as the Ziggurat was erected in honor of the moon goddess Nanna and functioned as the center of the city's religious activity. A thick mud brick wall encircled the ziggurat, enclosing the town and shielding it from outside attacks. Being a hub for trade and commerce was a significant factor in Ur's prosperity. The city's advantageous location along trade routes that connected Mesopotamia to the Indian Ocean, Persian Gulf, and other regions allowed for the exchange of commodities like luxury items, metals, grain, and textiles. The traders from Ur traveled far and wide, engaging in trade with far-off places like the Arabian Peninsula and the Indus Valley Civilization, which are located in present-day Pakistan. In addition to being a hub for commerce, Ur was also a center for artistic success and cultural innovation. Potters, jewelers, and scribes were among the many items made in the city, including cuneiform tablets and jewelry. The renowned Standard of Ur, a wooden box covered in elaborate mosaics representing scenes of conflict and peace, was discovered in Ur's royal cemetery, the royal tombs of Ur. Your decline was ultimately brought about by several circumstances, including political instability, environmental degradation, and external invasion, despite its wealth and might. Around 2000 BCE, the city was abandoned and lost its significance until archaeologists rediscovered it in the 19th century. The ancient ruins of Ur that strew the southern Mesopotamian countryside serve as a constant reminder of the city's former immense grandeur and importance in the development of human civilization. In the history of ancient Mesopotamia, the rise of Sumerian city-states such as Uruk and Ur symbolizes a turning point. These ancient Mesopotamian cities became significant political, economic, and cultural centers that shaped human history and left a lasting impression on the region. As we delve further into the history of these Sumerian city-states, we learn important lessons about the dynamics of ancient Mesopotamian society and the lasting influence of its thriving urban centers. Architectural innovation and urban life flourished in ancient Mesopotamia due to the establishment of city-states and urbanization. Cities developed into political, economic, and cultural hubs as populations increased and settlements spread. They also boasted remarkable architectural achievements that demonstrated the skill and inventiveness of ancient Mesopotamian culture. This section will examine Mesopotamian city-states' architectural accomplishments and urban life, providing insight into the lively and dynamic communities that flourished there. The city-states of Mesopotamia were well known for their magnificent architectural accomplishments, which featured imposing constructions like ziggurats, temples, palaces, and city walls. These architectural wonders represented the ruling class's wealth, power, and religious convictions, and fulfilled practical and symbolic functions. The ziggurat, a gigantic tiered pyramid devoted to the gods, is one of Mesopotamian city-states' most recognizable architectural elements. Ziggurats were used as religious structures and were thought to be the gods' earthly residences. They were made of mud brick and frequently had terraces, stairways, and temples, honoring various gods. The Great Ziggurat of Ur, situated in the city of Ur and towered over 64 feet above the ground, is the most well-known example. Temples were a significant part of Mesopotamian religious life and were frequently constructed inside the enclosures of ziggurats or on top of them. These temples were centers of ritual, worship, and sacrifice, where priests performed sacrifices and made pleas to the gods. Usually built of mud brick, temples were decorated with elaborate carvings, glazed tiles, and vibrant murals that portrayed religious ceremonies and mythological subjects. In Mesopotamian city-states, palaces functioned as the kings' and rulers' homes and the center of political power. These imposing buildings were constructed on a massive scale and had striking architectural features like audience halls, courtyards, and administration offices. Palaces were embellished with ornamental elements that demonstrated the riches and status of the ruling class, such as relief carvings, frescoes, and glazed brickwork. Built from baked or mud brick, city walls were crucial to defending Mesopotamian city-states. The city was surrounded by these walls, which offered defense against outside threats, including invasion, raiding, and combat. To ward off invaders and bolster the city's defenses, defensive towers, gates, and battlements were frequently added to city walls. The vivid social interaction, packed markets, and busy streets typified daily life in Mesopotamian city-states. The region's traders, artisans, and tourists came together in urban areas to buy, sell, and trade things, creating melting pots of cultures, languages, and customs. Economic pursuits, including trade, commerce, and handicrafts, dominated urban life. City squares frequently hosted markets where vendors offered a variety of commodities for sale, including luxury items, meals, textiles, and pottery. In specialized workshops, artisans created commodities, including textiles, metalwork, and pottery, sold domestically and abroad. In the hierarchical Mesopotamian city-states, people were assigned social roles and places according to wealth, occupation, and ancestry. The ruling class, which included monarchs, priests, and nobility, and who enjoyed riches, luxury, and political power, was at the top of the social structure. Free citizens, including traders, artisans, and landowners, were positioned beneath them and were essential to the city-state's governance and economy. Enslaved people and workers who carried out the manual labor required for society to function were at the bottom of the social scale. Religion heavily influenced urban life, as the numerous temples and shrines devoted to different gods and goddesses dot the city. Regular religious celebrations and festivities included processions, rites, and sacrifices, led by priests and priestesses. Temples functioned as hubs of communal life, where people congregated for religious ceremonies, worship, and direction. Cities were hubs for cross-cultural interaction and trade when traders, artists, and tourists from many areas came together to exchange commodities, concepts, and cultural customs. Cities in Mesopotamia were melting pots of many cultures, languages, and customs, where people from all backgrounds lived side by side and worked together to achieve social, cultural, and economic goals. Mesopotamian city-states' stunning architecture and bustling urban environments offer a glimpse into the lively and dynamic communities that flourished there. Urban centers were the lifeblood of ancient Mesopotamian culture, with ziggurats, temples, palaces, thriving markets, crammed streets, and lively social interaction. As we learn more about the history of the Mesopotamian city-states, we understand the intricacies of urban living and the lasting influence of innovative architecture in antiquity. The ancient Mesopotamian city-states were sophisticated societies with intricate social and political structures and hubs of economic activity and architectural wonders. Within these urban centers, everyday life was regulated by a hierarchical social framework, and the governing elites held political power through a combination of administrative control and supernatural authority. The social and political structure of Mesopotamian city-states will be examined in this section, along with the dynamics of power, authority, and social hierarchy that influenced prehistoric urban life. Mesopotamian city-states were characterized by a social hierarchy in which people were assigned various social roles and places according to their wealth, occupation, and ancestry. The ruling elite, which included the monarch, influential clerics, and aristocratic families, occupied the top position in the social structure. These people had rights, including property ownership, educational opportunities, and political influence, which gave them authority over society's institutions and resources. The free people, which included merchants, artisans, landowners, and skilled laborers, were positioned beneath the governing class. Free citizens could own property, trade, and hold positions of authority, among other societal rights and obligations. However, their amount of power and prestige within the community was frequently dictated by variables including wealth, education, and social ties, all of which impacted their rank. Enslaved people and laborers who performed the manual labor required for civilization to function were at the bottom of the social order. Enslaved people had few legal rights or safeguards and were usually former prisoners of war or dead enslaved people. In contrast, laborers were unpaid workers who performed manual labor in fields, workshops, or building sites in exchange for rations or pay. The ruling class in Mesopotamian city-states held disproportionate political power and exercised administrative and divine authority. The monarch, also known as the Ensi, acted as the highest authority and was said to be descended from the gods. Generally speaking, kingship was passed down from father to son by hereditary lineage, though there were also cases of usurpation and the installation of non-royal people in high places. A council of elders, comprised of influential members of society, priests, and high-ranking officials, backed the monarch. In its capacity as an advisory body, the council advised the monarch on diplomacy, law, and government issues. The monarch also depended on a network of administrators, tax collectors, military personnel, and the council to uphold law and order in the city-state. Mesopotamian city-states were highly organized politically primarily due to religion, with the king acting as a political and religious leader. The monarch was seen as the god's earthly envoy, charged with upholding cosmic harmony and guaranteeing the wealth and welfare of the realm. Temples and other religious buildings were important places of worship, ritual, and sacrifice, where the people received interpretations of and explanations of the divine will. As such, they were vital in legitimizing the king's authority. The ruling class held disproportionate power and influence in managing Mesopotamian city-states. Appointed officials who worked at the king's pleasure and oversaw administrative duties like resource management, land distribution, and tax collecting. As stewards of the king's domain, these officials were frequently selected from the ranks of the noble families. They were responsible for ensuring society functioned smoothly and the populace received necessary services. The governing class was also in charge of justice and law enforcement. They decided cases, dealt with offenders, and kept the city-state in order. Judges and magistrates presiding over courts of law heard cases and delivered decisions based on precedent, equality, and justice. Depending on the crime's seriousness and the offender's standing, punishments for crimes could vary from fines and restitution to incarceration, mutilation, or execution. Mesopotamian civilization was hierarchical, yet city-states maintained a sense of social cohesiveness and collective identity. The population's shared religious beliefs, cultural customs, and linguistic heritage fostered a sense of unity and belonging. Throughout the year, festivals, rites, and rituals reinforced the links of kinship and community and offered occasions for collective joy. Apart from the connections based on religion and culture, economic interdependence was also essential for preserving social cohesiveness in city-states. Intergroup cooperation was fostered by trade networks, labor specialization, and shared dependency on resources like food, water, and raw materials. Landowners and farmers contributed to the agricultural output to ensure the prosperity and stability of the city-state. At the same time, laborers, merchants, and artisans collaborated to produce and exchange goods. Mesopotamian city-states were characterized by hierarchical power, authority, and social status systems within their social and political frameworks. A convoluted social structure regulated the everyday lives of people in society, while ruling elites exercised administrative and divine authority to rule. Mesopotamian city-states were unified and resilient societies, bonded by common religious convictions, cultural customs, and economic interdependence, notwithstanding the inherent inequities in the social structure. We learn important lessons about the complexity of ancient Mesopotamian culture and the lasting influence of its urban civilization as we continue to explore the processes of social and political organization inside city-states. The Sumerians, who lived in ancient Mesopotamia, made a lasting impression on human history with their extraordinary accomplishments in various endeavors. The Sumerians established the groundwork for many facets of contemporary civilization, from significant developments in building, law, and administration to groundbreaking breakthroughs in writing and mathematics. This chapter delves into the remarkable accomplishments of the Sumerians, scrutinizing their lasting heritage and the influence of their input on the trajectory of human progress. The Sumerians were innovators in numerous scientific and technological domains, frequently acknowledged for the creation of writing, astrology, and the wheel. The world's first urban centers sprang from their civilization, which thrived on the rich plains of Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. These settlements were hubs for exchanging and refining ideas, innovations, and cultural practices. By their inventiveness, resourcefulness, and tenacity, the Sumerians changed the face of ancient Mesopotamia and established the foundation for the development of modern civilization. Reviewing their accomplishments will teach us how the Sumerians' contributions continue influencing our world today. The Sumerian intellectual heritage is a tribute to human persistence and inventiveness, from developing complex mathematical systems that established the groundwork for modern mathematics to the invention of writing, which transformed communication and record-keeping. This chapter will explore the Sumerians' fantastic accomplishments in science, technology, literature, and the arts. We will examine the imposing ziggurats and opulent temples devoted to the gods that characterize Sumerian city-states. We will also discuss the complex legal and administrative frameworks the Sumerians created to control their society and preserve order in their city-states. We will also learn about the Sumerians' vast cultural legacy, including their elaborate artwork, craftsmanship, epic literature, and works like Epic of Gilgamesh. We will also look at the complex rites and festivals and the pantheon of gods and goddesses that the Sumerian civilization worshipped and followed, which impacted their religious beliefs and practices. As we examine their accomplishments, we will better understand the Sumerians' inventiveness, resourcefulness, and tenacity. Their lasting contributions to human knowledge, culture, and technology are a constant reminder of the outstanding achievements of the Sumerian people and the continuing legacy of ancient Mesopotamia. The Sumerians have made a lasting impression on human history with their incredible accomplishments, encouraging subsequent generations to pursue ever higher creativity, exploration, and discovery standards. The Sumerians, frequently credited with founding civilization, achieved essential breakthroughs in several domains that served as the basis for many facets of contemporary society. They significantly contributed to technology, agriculture, and mathematics, among other fields. This section delves into the noteworthy contributions made by the Sumerians in several domains, examining their lasting influence and the implications of their discoveries for advancing humankind. The Sumerians were mathematicians' forerunners, creating complex numerical systems and mathematical methods that were a foundation for many ideas still in use today. One of their most significant accomplishments was creating a base 60 notation number system based on the sexagesimal system. The Sumerian number system allowed for intricate computations, including fractions, multiplication, and division. It was composed of symbols denoting units, tens, and multiples of 60. This approach made it easier to collect numerical data, calculate volumes and areas, and measure time and angles. The Sumerians created a numerical system and made great strides in geometry and trigonometry. They developed methods for measuring land, building structures, and surveying celestial bodies. They were among the first to devise formulas for determining the volume of three-dimensional objects like pyramids and cylinders, and the area of geometric shapes like squares, rectangles, and triangles. Sumerian mathematicians also made significant contributions to astronomy. They utilized mathematical methods to monitor the motions of the stars, planets, and constellations. Based on astronomical data, they created calendars that divided the year into 12 lunar months and plotted the locations of celestial bodies to forecast eclipses and other astronomical occurrences. The Sumerian economy and population were based on agriculture, the backbone of Sumerian society. The Sumerians were among the first people to create sophisticated agricultural practices, including crop rotation, irrigation, and the use of tame animals as labor. One of the most critical agricultural innovations in Sumerian history was the creation of irrigation systems to use the waters of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers for farming. By building complex networks of ditches, levees, and canals to redirect water from the rivers to their fields, the Sumerians could grow crops all year round and sustain vast populations. Crop rotation was another technique used by Sumerian farmers to increase yields and restore soil minerals. Different crops, including barley, wheat, and legumes, were planted alternately. They used simple plows and implements constructed of wood and stone to cultivate the soil and harvest their crops. They also used domesticated oxen and donkeys to pull plows and carts. The Sumerians invented crop rotation and irrigation methods, granary architecture, and clay seals to identify proprietors and guarantee grain safety and storage. The Sumerians were technological pioneers, creating innovations that transformed everyday life and established the groundwork for subsequent technological breakthroughs. The wheel was one of their most significant technological achievements. It revolutionized trade, agriculture, and transportation in prehistoric Mesopotamia. When the wheel was created in 3500 BCE, it was possible to develop wheeled vehicles like chariots and carts, making it easier to move people and commodities over great distances. Additionally, it transformed agriculture by making it possible to build wheeled plows and other tools that improved efficiency and productivity. Apart from the wheel, the Sumerians also devised the sail, the plow, and the potter's wheel, among many other technological innovations. The sail, created in 3500 BCE, transformed maritime exploration and trade by enabling Sumerian sailors to cruise the Persian Gulf and other regions. Around the same period, the plow was invented, which made it easier to cultivate the land, boosting agricultural output and promoting the expansion of urban areas. Around 4000 BCE, the potter's wheel was devised, revolutionizing the pottery industry and enabling the construction of more durable and uniform food and drink storage vessels. The Sumerians also achieved strides in metallurgy, creating methods for casting and melting metals like gold, copper, and bronze. They made many tools, weapons, and artifacts from these metals, including jewelry, axes, swords, and ceremonial objects. The Sumerians achieved great strides in technology, agriculture, and mathematics, serving as the model for many facets of contemporary life. Their contributions to these fields transformed human civilization by enabling complex communities to emerge, urban regions to expand, and trade and culture to flourish. As we learn more about the accomplishments of the Sumerians, we can appreciate their inventiveness, grit, and perseverance, as well as the lasting impact of their outstanding contributions to human growth and knowledge. The Sumerians, who lived in ancient Mesopotamia, were forerunners in the development of technology. They produced a vast range of essential instruments and technologies that transformed daily life and established the groundwork for numerous facets of contemporary society. Their most significant accomplishments were developing the wheel, the plow, and other tools and implements that revolutionized industry, agriculture, and transportation. We will examine the creation and significance of these essential tools for human history as we delve into the fantastic technological contributions made by the Sumerians in this part. The Sumerians were among the first people to build and use the wheel, which is considered one of human history's most significant technological advances. The wheel, thought to have been created in Mesopotamia in 3500 BCE, revolutionized industry, trade, and transportation while paving the way for wheeled vehicles like wagons, chariots, and carts. The wheel transformed transportation by facilitating the long-distance movement of people and cargo. Wheeled vehicles made moving significant commodities and big loads easier between far-flung locations, promoting trade and commerce. Additionally, they made it possible for troops and military supplies to travel quickly, which aided in developing chariots into potent weapons of war. The wheel significantly impacted agriculture, industry, construction, and transportation. Wheeled vehicles transport building materials like clay, wood, and stone for construction projects. In contrast, wheeled carts and plows improved agricultural production by making it more straightforward to plant and harvest crops. With the development of the potter's wheel, ceramic production was transformed, and more robust and consistent storage containers for food and drink could be made. Another crucial agricultural equipment that the Sumerians devised was the plow, which was essential to expanding urban centers and agriculture in ancient Mesopotamia. The plow was invented in approximately 3500 BCE, and it transformed farming by simplifying the process of tilling the soil, planting crops, and boosting agricultural output. The first Sumerian plows were wooden, with a metal blade fastened to the front of a basic timber frame. These archaic plows, drawn by donkeys or oxen, were meant to churn the earth, making trenches for seed planting and enhancing drainage. After the invention of the plow, Sumerian farmers could cultivate more excellent land tracts and produce excess food, which aided in the development of complex societies and urban centers. Two further social and economic effects of the plow's invention were developing specialized farming communities and forming social classes based on land ownership and agricultural output. Wealthy landowners became influential members of Sumerian society, ruling over massive estates and hiring laborers to cultivate the land. These agricultural settlements produced excess food, which fueled the development of urban areas where traders, business owners, and administrators conducted business. The Sumerians created the wheel and the plow, among many other essential tools and utensils that transformed daily life and established the groundwork for later technological developments. One such invention was the sail, which transformed maritime exploration and trade using wind energy to power vessels over the Persian Gulf and other oceans. The potter's wheel was another significant discovery that revolutionized the pottery industry by enabling potters to produce more durable and uniform food and drink containers. Because the potter's wheel allowed potters to create larger batches of ceramics faster and more effectively, the Sumerian civilization used ceramics extensively for trade, storage, and cooking. In addition, the Sumerians created a wide range of metalworking methods, such as casting and melting metals like copper, bronze, and gold. Numerous tools, weapons, and artifacts, including swords, axes, jewelry, and ceremonial objects, were made from these metals. The Sumerians made great strides in agriculture, building, and industry because of their mastery of metalworking, which enabled them to create tools and implements that were stronger, sharper, and more long-lasting than those fashioned of wood or stone. With the invention of the wheel, the plow, and other essential equipment, the Sumerians transformed daily life and established the groundwork for many facets of modern civilization. These technological developments revolutionized manufacturing, transportation, and agriculture, paving the way for the rise of complex communities, urban centers, and trade and commerce. As we learn more about the accomplishments of the Sumerians, we appreciate their inventiveness, tenacity, and grit, as well as the lasting impact of their outstanding contributions to the advancement of humanity. The Sumerians, who lived in ancient Mesopotamia, contributed significantly to religion and literature. They also left behind a rich legacy of religious beliefs and literary works that still impact modern cultures and society. This section will discuss the Sumerians' tremendous accomplishments in various domains, and their long-lasting influence on human culture, spirituality, and intellectual thought. One of the oldest literary traditions in human history is Sumerian epic poetry, hymns, tales, and lamentations. These offer important insights into ancient Mesopotamian culture's values, beliefs, and way of life. One of the most well-known pieces of Sumerian literature is the epic poem Epic of Gilgamesh, which narrates the tale of Gilgamesh, the mythical ruler of Uruk, and his pursuit of eternal life. Renowned for examining subjects like friendship, mortality, and the pursuit of purpose in life, the Epic of Gilgamesh is among the world's oldest extant literary works. The epic follows Gilgamesh on his journey to discover the key to eternal life, which takes him on several adventures, including fights with legendary creatures and meetings with gods and goddesses. Other literary works found in Sumerian literature outside the Epic of Gilgamesh include hymns and prayers honoring the gods and goddesses of the Sumerian pantheon, like Inanna, the goddess of war and love, and Enki, the deity of wisdom and water. These prayers and hymns were said during religious rites and ceremonies and were essential to Sumerian religious practice. Myths and legends that describe the formation of the world, the genesis of humanity, the influence of gods and goddesses on the development of human history. These myths and legends shed light on Sumerian cosmology, theology, and worldview, illuminating ancient Mesopotamian culture's cultural values and spiritual beliefs. In Sumerian society, religion was fundamental to all facets of daily life, influencing everything from politics and governance to trade and agriculture. The gods and goddesses that the Sumerians worshipped were linked to various elements of the natural world, including the sun, moon, earth, and sky, as well as abstract ideas like justice, wisdom, and fertility. An, the god of the sky and king of the gods, was regarded as one of the most significant gods in the Sumerian pantheon. He was thought to govern over the cosmos and uphold harmony and order among the gods and goddesses. Enlil was another important deity, the god of the air and storms. He was worshipped as the source of fertility and life-giving rain, and as the protector of humanity. The Sumerian pantheon featured a wide range of gods and goddesses in addition to An and Enlil, including Inanna, the goddess of war and love, Utu, the deity of justice and the sun, and Namu, the primordial goddess of the sea and the creator of all. Within the pantheon, each deity had a distinct position and function, and worshippers honored and soothed them with rites, sacrifices, and prayers. Sumerian religion was defined by a sophisticated system of rites and ceremonies intended to converse with the gods and goddesses and beg for their favor and protection. In addition to prayers, hymns, and chants spoken by priests and priestesses at temples and shrines devoted to the gods and goddesses, these rites included food, wine, and incense offerings. In addition, Sumerian religion significantly influenced governance, morals, and the law. The monarch, or Ensi, was the earthly embodiment of the gods and was in charge of upholding heavenly harmony and cosmic order inside the realm. He also fulfilled the role of a political and religious leader. Laws and rules were frequently derived from religious doctrine and governed by the god's will, as revealed to priests and priestesses. The Sumerians left behind a rich heritage of literary works and religious ideas that still impact modern cultures and society. They also made substantial contributions to the realms of religion and literature. Their religious rites and practices influenced every element of everyday life, from politics and governance to agriculture and trade, and their epic poetry, hymns, myths, and prayers offer insightful perspectives into the beliefs, values, and way of life of ancient Mesopotamian society. We develop a greater understanding of the Sumerian people's cultural and spiritual legacy and the long-lasting influence of their outstanding contributions to human culture and civilization as we learn more about their literary and religious accomplishments. Like the history of any civilization, the rise and final decline of ancient Mesopotamia was shaped by several difficulties and wars. The Sumerians and their descendants encountered many challenges and risks to their lives and prosperity, ranging from natural disasters and environmental catastrophes to wars, invasions, and internal unrest. This chapter will examine the numerous disputes and difficulties the ancient Mesopotamians faced, how they overcame them, and how their actions continued to influence the area's history. In the lush plains between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, ancient Mesopotamia was susceptible to several environmental risks, such as droughts, floods, and soil erosion. These natural calamities caused severe agricultural difficulties, which were the foundation of Sumerian society. Food shortages, starvation, and unstable economic conditions resulted. Although the Sumerians could lessen the effects of these environmental difficulties by developing sophisticated irrigation systems, they were not always effective in stopping crop failures and resource depletion. Ancient Mesopotamia was beset by natural disasters, internal strife, and warfare as city-states competed for resources, land, and power. To protect themselves from outside threats, the Sumerians constructed walled towns and gathered strong armies, but they were regularly involved in wars with other nearby nations and empires. There were times of conquest and expansion, and times of peace and prosperity brought about by the rise of strong leaders like Sargon of Akkad and Hammurabi of Babylon. The stability and cohesiveness of ancient Mesopotamian society were severely threatened by social unrest and internal strife. Many instances of injustice, exploitation, and inequality exacerbated tensions between various socioeconomic classes and organizations. Peasants and farmers protested against unfair taxes and land allocation, while enslaved people and laborers fought against their captors. The fabric of Sumerian society was further weakened by these internal tensions, which frequently led to violence and unrest. Religious conflicts and ideological disagreements were also prevalent in ancient Mesopotamia due to the diverse gods and goddesses that various city-states worshipped and their differing religious practices and beliefs. Temples and other religious buildings were significant sources of power and influence, frequently vying for dominance over territory and resources with secular authority. As monotheistic religions like Judaism and Zoroastrianism gained popularity, their adherents battled with those of ancient polytheistic beliefs, bringing additional difficulties and conflicts to the area. The people of ancient Mesopotamia showed incredible fortitude, flexibility, and inventiveness in the face of hardship, despite these difficulties and wars. They created creative solutions to environmental problems, such as building irrigation systems and creating crops resistant to drought. They formed alliances and treaties to lessen the effects of outside dangers like invasions and conquests. They also established institutions and legal codes to address social injustices and advance justice and stability in their communities. This chapter will examine the struggles and conflicts the ancient Mesopotamians faced, how they overcame them, and how their actions continued to influence the area's history. By analyzing natural disasters, battles, invasions, social unrest, and religious conflicts, we will learn a great deal about the intricacies of ancient Mesopotamian civilization and the lasting effects of its struggles and conflicts. Examine the challenges faced by Sumerian civilization, including environmental factors. Located in the lush plains of ancient Mesopotamia, the Sumerian civilization encountered numerous difficulties that tested its citizens' fortitude and inventiveness. Environmental issues were the rivers Tigris and Euphrates, which cut through the center of ancient Mesopotamia, served as both a life-giving resource and a possible danger to Sumerian culture. Seasonal rains and snowmelt upstream produced frequent floods, submerging farmland, damaging crops, and uprooting populations. The Sumerians experienced both benefits and curses from these floods. They replenished the land with nutrient-rich silt, but also caused destruction and hardship. The Sumerians created intricate irrigation systems to regulate water flow and safeguard their crops in response to the fear of flooding. By building dikes, canals, and levees to redirect floodwaters away from populated areas and agricultural fields, they could maximize the advantages of the rivers while lowering the danger of flooding. These irrigation networks, which were crucial to the region's agricultural sustainability, made the cultivation of cereals like barley, wheat, and dates possible, the foundation of the Sumerian diet and economy. The Sumerian society also had to deal with droughts in addition to floods, especially during times of low rainfall and high temperatures. Droughts seriously threatened food security and economic stability because they caused famine, crop failures, and water shortages. The weather was unpredictable, and the Sumerians needed help sustaining agricultural productivity in desert and semi-arid regions. To lessen the effects of droughts, the Sumerians created methods for managing their soil and conserving water. They built reservoirs and dug wells to guarantee a consistent water supply for crops and livestock during dry spells. They also engaged in crop rotation and fallowing to maintain soil fertility and moisture, which involved switching between crops and leaving fields fallow to replenish nutrients. Soil salinization and depletion by intensive farming and irrigation techniques presented long-term problems for agricultural sustainability and productivity. The Sumerians grew their crops mainly through irrigation, but over time, the continual use of water caused salts to accumulate in the soil, decreasing its fertility and suitability for farming. Another issue was soil erosion, because deforestation and overgrazing caused topsoil loss and land degradation. The Sumerians used techniques, including contour plowing, terracing, and applying organic fertilizers to prevent soil erosion. To stop soil erosion on hillsides and slopes, they constructed retaining walls and barriers, which resulted in terraced fields that held in water and soil runoff. To restore soil structure and replace nutrients, they also utilized compost and animal dung, which increased the fertility and productivity of their agricultural areas. In ancient Mesopotamia, overgrazing, deforestation, and agricultural growth contributed to the spread of desertification, a process that turned once fertile regions into desolate wastelands unfit for cultivation or life. Because desertification resulted in the loss of arable land, the depletion of natural resources, and the displacement of populations, it posed a severe danger to the sustainability of Sumerian civilization. The Sumerians undertook land rehabilitation and reforestation initiatives to recover deteriorated ecosystems and reclaim abandoned territories to counteract desertification. To improve the region's biodiversity and ecological balance, they planted trees and shrubs to stabilize the soil, lessen erosion, and provide habitats for wildlife. Even though the Sumerian culture is well known for its achievements and inventions, there were disputes and hardships. Conflicts and warfare over territory, resources, and power frequently broke out between city-states and bordering regions, influencing Sumerian history. This section will examine the causes, effects on the evolution of ancient Mesopotamian society and the battles that transpired within and between Sumerian city-states and their surrounding regions. Conflicts arose frequently within the walls of Sumerian city-states due to rivalry for resources, territorial disputes, and attempts for political dominance. Every city-state had its ensi, or ruler, who had great power over the city's affairs, but frequently faced different groups and conflicting interests. The struggle to control land and agricultural resources was one of the leading causes of war in Sumerian city-states. Land ownership, rights to utilize the land, and access to water for irrigation became contentious as urban centers and population grew and the need for arable land rose. Conflicts between affluent landowners, peasant farmers, and pastoral nomads over valuable agricultural fields and grazing pastures frequently resulted from these disagreements. Furthermore, dynastic rivalries and contests for political dominance frequently fueled violence inside Sumerian city-states. Notably, succession conflicts often resulted in conflict as different claimants fought for control of the throne. As competing factions attempted to establish their supremacy and maintain their grasp on power, these power battles frequently resulted in public unrest, palace coups, and even killings. Conflicts within Sumerian city-states were also influenced by ideological disagreements and theological divides, as various temples and religious organizations fought for patronage and power. Temples governed enormous estates, resources, and labor forces as political and economic power centers. Rivalries between temples frequently resulted in arguments over the interpretation of religious scriptures and rites, and possession of sacred artifacts, offerings, and spiritual places. Apart from internal disputes among Sumerian city-states, the area was marked by hostilities, battles between city-states and their adjacent territories, and foreign powers' intrusions and invasions. Ancient Mesopotamia's vast plains drew the interest of surrounding peoples and empires, which aimed to subjugate and seize control of the area's valuable agricultural areas and vital commerce routes. The rivalry between Sumer and Akkad, a city-state, was one of the most essential confrontations in ancient Mesopotamian history. It resulted in Sargon of Akkad's conquest of Sumer in 2334 BCE, through a series of military battles and diplomatic alliances that brought the city-states of Mesopotamia under his authority. Sargon, a formidable military leader and statesman, founded the Akkadian Empire, the first empire in recorded history. The balance of power in the area changed dramatically with the establishment of the Akkadian Empire, when Sargon and his heirs expanded their rule over enormous lands, including Sumer, Akkad, Elam, and Assyria. As Sumerian city-states were integrated into a broader imperial framework under the leadership of Akkadian emperors and officials, the Akkadian Empire brought about an era of political consolidation and cultural uniformity. Furthermore, as Sumerian city-states aimed to increase their power and control over important trade routes and markets, disputes with nearby regions were sometimes sparked by competition for trade and economic interests. The flourishing of Sumerian society depended on trade, since it allowed products, resources, and ideas to flow between various areas and cultures. However, rival city-states and empires frequently fought over control of trade routes and access to rich commodities like metals, lumber, and luxury items. Ancient Mesopotamian society was characterized by internal conflicts inside Sumerian city-states and external conflicts with adjacent regions, which shaped the region's history and civilizational advancement. Numerous variables contributed to these conflicts, including resource rivalry, territorial disputes, and fights for governmental power. Conflicts sparked societal development, political ingenuity, and cross-cultural contact, even if they frequently ended in bloodshed, devastation, and suffering. We learn important lessons about the intricacies of ancient Mesopotamian society and the lasting effects of its battles and victories as we investigate the conflicts that emerged within and between Sumerian city-states and surrounding regions. An important turning point in the area's history was the emergence of armed forces in ancient Mesopotamia, which influenced politics, society, and culture for generations. City-states fought against each other for resources, territory, and power, which made the creation of solid armies and military tactics crucial to their existence. This section will examine the development of military forces in ancient Mesopotamia and their significant effects on the region's social structure, government, and cultural norms. The ancient Mesopotamian city-states were in perpetual conflict, vying for dominance over vital resources, trading routes, and bountiful land. Due to the frequent escalation of this rivalry into conflicts and wars, military powers able to establish superiority over their rivals began to emerge. During the early dynastic period, c. 2900–2350 BCE, the city-state of Uruk emerged as a significant political and military force in Mesopotamia, making it one of the region's first militarizations. Developments in military technology and tactics, such as creating bronze weapons, fortified city walls, and organized military groups, contributed to the rise of military powers. Armies had a significant tactical edge in battle thanks to bronze weapons, which were made of an alloy of copper and tin and were more rigid and resilient than older stone and copper weaponry. Organized military groups, such as infantry, cavalry, and chariots, allowed armies to coordinate attacks and maneuvers more effectively. At the same time, fortified city walls offered security against invaders and helped city-states to defend themselves against siege warfare. The emergence of military powers significantly altered ancient Mesopotamian society, changing the political system, social structure, and cultural norms. Kings and other military leaders were prominent members of society, possessing great military and political authority and frequently ruling as absolute monarchs. These warrior kings' military strength and leadership qualities were highly regarded, and epic poetry, hymns, and royal inscriptions commemorated their valiant victories. The triumphant city-states received riches, resources, and tribute due to their military conquests and geographical expansion, which enriched the ruling class and solidified their grasp on power. Conquered lands were subjected to tribute payments, which included products, animals, and enslaved people. These payments were used to build temples, palaces, and other colossal structures. In addition to enriching merchants, craftsmen, and artisans, the war's loot also fueled urbanization and economic expansion. However, the emergence of military powers also brought exploitation, injustice, and social inequality in pre-Columbian Mesopotamian culture. People who were conquered frequently endured cruel treatment, such as forced labor, enslavement, and tribute payments, which incited discontent and uprising. The ruling class benefited from privileges and money at the expense of the general populace, causing social strata to become increasingly stratified. Along with the deification of military victories and heroes, the militarization of society also glorified conflict and bloodshed. Ancient Mesopotamian culture and religion were significantly influenced by the emergence of military powers, which shaped ideological values, artistic expression, and religious beliefs. Epic poetry, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, honored military conquests and victories by extolling the virtues of legendary warriors and kings in war. Religious rites and ceremonies featured military themes and motifs as city-states prayed to gods for protection and favor during wars and conflicts. Furthermore, when conquerors pushed their political and religious ideas on conquered peoples and assimilated alien deities into their pantheon, the growth of military forces contributed to the spread of imperial ideologies and religious syncretism. New forms of artistic expression, architectural architecture, religious cults, rituals, and iconography emerged from this cultural integration and hybridization process. But glorifying battle and conquest and deifying martial virtues like bravery, strength, and honor were all consequences of society's militarization. In literature and art, military commanders were frequently portrayed as supernatural or quasi-divine entities with superhuman strength and prowess. Mesopotamian mythology and religion developed a strong emphasis on the cult of the warrior hero, as kings and other leaders attempted to justify their authority by claiming divine ancestry and superior combat skills. Ancient Mesopotamia was profoundly affected by the advent of military forces, which shaped social structure, governance, and cultural values for centuries. Strong armies and military tactics became crucial for city-state survival and prosperity as they fought for supremacy and control. The governing classes benefited financially and materially from military conquests and territorial expansion, improving society and exacerbating injustices and social inequality. In addition, the militarization of society had a long-lasting effect on religion and culture, influencing ideologies, creative expression, and religious beliefs. We learn important lessons about the complexity of ancient societies and the lasting effects of their military conquests and battles as we study the emergence of military powers in ancient Mesopotamia. A significant chapter in human civilization ended with the collapse and eventual demise of the Sumerian civilization, which signified the end of an era in ancient Mesopotamian history. From its modest beginnings in Mesopotamia's rich plains to its pinnacle as a strong and vital civilization, the Sumerian civilization underwent a trajectory of development, invention, and success. But like many great civilizations, the Sumerians eventually encountered some difficulties and internal strife that sped up their downfall and led to their complete erasure from history. This chapter will study the social, political, economic, and environmental elements that influenced the Sumerian civilization's collapse and the circumstances that ultimately led to its demise. As we delve into the fall and eventual destruction of the Sumerian civilization, we will examine the effects of external invasions, internal strife, environmental deterioration, and societal collapse on the stability and viability of Sumerian society. We'll look at how these elements combined and eroded each other, eventually resulting in the Sumerian civilization's demise and a steady decline in power and influence. Explore the factors contributing to the decline of Sumerian civilization. One of the oldest and most significant civilizations in human history, the Sumerian civilization, declined over the ages in a complicated and varied process. From the height of its dominance in ancient Mesopotamia until its final erasure from history, the Sumerian civilization was subjected to various difficulties and forces that progressively diminished its strength, stability, and vitality. In this section, we shall investigate the elements that accelerated the fall of the Sumerian civilization, looking at the interactions between social, political, economic, and environmental aspects. Degradation of the environment, including deforestation, soil erosion, and desertification, was one of the leading causes of the Sumerian civilization's downfall. The Sumerians relied primarily on agriculture for economic and nutritional sustenance, but because of their intense agricultural methods, arable land was degraded and soil nutrients were depleted. Irrigation techniques caused the soil to accumulate salts, gradually reducing the soil's fertility, while deforestation, motivated by the need for fuel and lumber, caused erosion and topsoil loss. Reduced agricultural output due to environmental deterioration resulted in food shortages, starvation, and unstable economies. The decline of Sumerian civilization was partly caused by the rulers' incapacity to adequately manage and alleviate the repercussions of environmental degradation, which increased social tensions and political instability. Political disintegration and internal strife among city-states were additional factors in the downfall of Sumerian civilization. The Sumerian city-states were constantly at odds, fighting for dominance over resources, trading routes, and territory. As leaders of city-states competed to overthrow their rivals and increase their power, this rivalry resulted in coalitions, alliances, and betrayals. The perpetual state of conflict and unrest eroded Sumerian society's cohesion and cohesiveness, as well as the central authority of the ruling class. Because of political fragmentation, Sumerian society declined faster than expected, making it harder to coordinate responses to internal and external pressures. The reduction of agricultural output, the disruption of trade routes, and the depletion of economic resources all contributed to the economic downturn that ultimately led to the collapse of Sumerian civilization. Food shortages and starvation brought on by the collapse of agricultural systems due to environmental degradation threatened the stability and sustainability of Sumerian society. Once thriving trade networks between Sumerian city-states and nearby regions began to fail as political unrest and violence hampered trade and exchange. Social unrest resulted from the economic downturn because peasants, workers, and artisans suffered deprivation and poverty. Social tensions increased as the ruling class accumulated wealth and resources, and hatred among the lower classes grew, increasing economic inequality. The deterioration of the economy eroded the Sumerian civilization's foundations, accelerating its decline. An essential factor in the Sumerian civilization's downfall was external invasions and conquests by nearby powers and empires. Throughout its history, external powers such as the Akkadians, Babylonians, Assyrians, and Persians repeatedly invaded and subjugated Sumer to increase their sphere of influence and conquer the land. These invasions undermined governmental authority and economic stability by bringing devastation, pillage, and turmoil to Sumerian cities and society. As waves of invaders subjugated and absorbed Sumerian city-states into their empires, the Sumerian kings' incapacity to adequately protect their lands and fend off outside threats accelerated the demise of their civilization. The fall of the Sumerian civilization ended an era in human history, clearing the way for the emergence of new powers and civilizations in ancient Mesopotamia. Peasants, laborers, and enslaved people revolted against their rulers and attempted to topple the ruling class, causing social upheaval and revolts that ultimately led to the decline of Sumerian civilization. A sense of hatred and discontent sparked protests, strikes, and uprisings among the lower classes due to economic inequality, exploitation, and injustice. The Sumerian civilization declined more quickly because its rulers could not resolve the complaints of the lower classes and enact significant changes, which increased social unrest and political instability. Social unrest and revolts weakened the Sumerian king's central authority and threatened the stability and cohesiveness of Sumerian society, ultimately leading to its demise. A complicated and multidimensional process, environmental degradation, political disintegration, economic decline, foreign invasions, and social unrest contributed to the Sumerian civilization's downfall. The interplay and compounding of these elements undermined Sumerian society's sustainability and stability, hastening its downfall. Examining the elements that led to the Sumerian civilization's downfall helps us better understand the intricacies of ancient Mesopotamian history and the timeless lessons it can teach us today. A turbulent period in ancient Mesopotamian history, the Sumerian civilization's decline and eventual destruction was marked by internal discontent and external invasions that weakened Sumerian authority and influence. This section will discuss the invasion by foreign powers and domestic dissatisfaction that accelerated the fall of Sumerian civilization, along with its effects on politics, society, and culture. The Sumerian civilization endured multiple invasions and conquests throughout its history, from surrounding nations and empires vying for control over the area. The Akkadians, a Semitic-speaking population from the north led by Sargon the Great, invaded Sumer as early as 2334 BCE, making it one of the first invasions. The first multi-ethnic empire in history, the Akkadian Empire, was based in the city of Akkad and ruled over Sumer for over a century. The Akkadians' conquest of Sumer initiated a trend of external aggression and dominance that would later define Mesopotamian history. Assyrians, Persians, and Babylonians were among the many waves of invaders who attempted to exploit Mesopotamia's resources and richness for their gain. This resulted in a centuries-long cycle of subjugation, rebellion, and conquest that left the region unstable. These invasions devastated the Sumerian capital and society, plundered and uprooted it. They also undermined the central authority of the Sumerian rulers by interfering with trade, agriculture, and government. The Sumerians, known for their scientific, artistic, and architectural accomplishments, were compelled to submit to the military strength of their invaders and adjust to new political and cultural conditions while living under alien authority. Social unrest, internal discontent, and external invasions beset the Sumerian civilization, further undermining its foundations and accelerating its downfall. Tensions between various social classes and groups resulted from social injustices, inequality, and exploitation as peasants, laborers, and enslaved people rebelled against their oppressors and attempted to topple the ruling class. The era of Lugalzagesi of Umma, who subjugated multiple city-states in Sumer, is mentioned in the Sumerian king list as one of the most well-known examples of internal turmoil in Sumerian history. Following his reign, a succession of power battles and uprisings as competing city-states fought for dominance of the area followed. Because of this internal strife, Sumerian unity and cohesiveness were weakened, which made it simpler for foreign powers to take advantage of the divides in Sumerian society and establish their authority over the area. Furthermore, as ambitious rulers attempted to enlarge their spheres of influence and conquer new territory at the expense of their neighbors, political rivalries and power battles among rival city-states also contributed to internal instability and division. Sumerian culture was more susceptible to internal strife and foreign attacks due to the lack of a centralized authority and the fragmentation of political power, which accelerated the civilization's downfall and eventual destruction. Sumerian society and culture were significantly altered, with social structures, governmental institutions, and cultural norms changing due to internal discontent and external invasion. Urban centers collapsed, and civilization declined due to widespread suffering and hardship brought on by population displacement, city destruction, and trade route interruption. Furthermore, Sumerian identity was lost, and cultural heritage was destroyed as a result of the integration of alien cultures and the imposition of foreign rule. As Akkadian, Babylonian, Assyrian, and Persian influences penetrated every sphere of Mesopotamian culture, Sumerian language, literature, and religious beliefs were progressively replaced by those of their conquerors. Despite the Sumerian civilization's downfall and eventual demise, its legacy persisted because of the advances it provided to human society, such as the creation of writing, the advancement of astronomy and mathematics, and the earliest urban centers and legal systems in history. As we consider the invasion by foreign powers and internal turmoil that accelerated the decline of the Sumerian civilization, we learn important lessons about the complexity of ancient Mesopotamian history and the continuing legacy of one of the earliest and most significant civilizations. One of the oldest and most significant societies in human history, the collapse of the Sumerian civilization, is still a topic of scientific discussion and inquiry. Historians, archaeologists, and academics have put up many theories over the ages to explain Sumerian society's fall and eventual extinction. These explanations range from internal discontent and social upheaval to environmental disasters and foreign invasions. The main ideas regarding the fall of Sumerian society will be looked at in this section, along with its advantages, disadvantages, and implications for our knowledge of Mesopotamian history in the past. According to a well-known idea, ecological collapse and environmental deterioration were the leading causes of Sumerian society's collapse. This idea holds that extensive starvation, sickness, and population relocation among the Sumerian people were caused by intense agriculture, deforestation, desertification, loss of arable land, natural resource depletion, and the collapse of agricultural output. These difficulties were further compounded by floods, droughts, and other natural disasters, which made it harder for Sumerian society to survive. Archaeological and geological evidence, such as sediment cores, pollen records, and soil samples, support this theory by showing notable environmental deterioration and changes in the late 3rd millennium BCE, corresponding with the fall of Sumerian civilization. Even while they were necessary to keep agriculture going, building irrigation systems and canal networks may have also added to soil salinization and waterlogging, aggravating environmental degradation. Another theory of the fall of Sumerian society emphasizes the importance of external invasions and conquests by surrounding powers and empires in destabilizing the area and weakening Sumerian power and influence. Outside powers, such as the Akkadians, Babylonians, Assyrians, and Persians, repeatedly invaded and subjugated Sumer throughout its history to enlarge their sphere of influence and establish supremacy over the area. The Sumerian capital and society were devastated, plundered, and uprooted by these invasions, which also undermined the central authority of the Sumerian rulers by interfering with trade, agriculture, and government. Historical documents, such as royal inscriptions, chronicles, and annals that describe the military expeditions and conquests of foreign countries in Mesopotamia, provide evidence supporting this theory. Archaeological evidence, including foreign artifacts, inscriptions, and architectural styles in Sumerian cities, further supports the idea of external invasions and foreign rule throughout the late 3rd millennium BCE. A third explanation regarding the breakdown of Sumerian society emphasizes the importance of social unrest and internal dissatisfaction in the collapse of the community. Tensions between various social classes and groups resulted from social injustices, inequality, and exploitation as peasants, laborers, and enslaved people rebelled against their oppressors and attempted to topple the ruling class. Sumerian society's unity and solidarity were weakened by internal instability and division brought on by political rivalry and power battles among rival city-states. Historical documents that record times of social unrest, insurrection, and political turmoil in Sumerian cities, such as the Sumerian king list and royal inscriptions, provide evidence supporting this theory. Archaeological evidence bolsters the notion of internal unrest and fighting during the late 3rd millennium BCE. This evidence includes the discovery of defensive fortifications, weapons, and human remains suggestive of combat and bloodshed. A fourth theory concerning the demise of Sumerian culture emphasizes the role of trade disruption and economic deterioration in the collapse of the society. Sumerian communities may have lost access to essential resources and markets due to the disintegration of long-distance trade networks that linked them to far-off places like the Indus Valley, Egypt, and Anatolia. This resulted in economic stagnation and decline. The loss of resources and trade routes undermined Sumerian society's economic base, making it harder for kings to uphold social order and political stability. Archaeological discoveries support this theory by demonstrating the decline of urban centers, abandonment of trade routes, and the shortage of luxury commodities and imports in Sumerian towns in the latter part of the 3rd millennium BCE. Political instability and social unrest may have resulted from the breakdown of long-distance trade networks, as leaders found it difficult to satisfy their people's needs and aspirations in a world that was becoming more unstable and unpredictable. There are still many facets and complexities surrounding the fall of Sumerian society, making it impossible to pin down a single reason or viewpoint. While the Sumerian civilization may have declined and eventually vanished due to environmental degradation, external invasions, internal strife, and economic decline, the precise order of events and their relative significance are still being debated and researched. We can learn a great deal about the intricacies of ancient Mesopotamian history and the lasting impact of one of the world's oldest and most significant civilizations by investigating the numerous ideas on the collapse of Sumerian society. Sumeria, one of the oldest and most significant civilizations in human history, has left an enduring legacy that continues to echo through the ages and shape our world today. Sumeria has made numerous important contributions to human civilization, from its groundbreaking work in writing, mathematics, and administration to its enduring cultural and religious traditions. This chapter delves into Sumeria's legacy, analyzing the enduring influence of its inventions, establishments, and concepts on succeeding societies and civilizations. We will explore Sumeria's creative and scientific accomplishments, solve its cuneiform script's riddles, and discover its ancient town's mysteries as we travel through its legacy. Scholars, historians, and enthusiasts alike are still enthralled and fascinated by the Sumerian legacy, which spans from the majestic tales of Gilgamesh to the majestic ziggurats of Ur. Let's explore the intricate web of Sumerian culture to learn more about its lasting influence on the modern world. A monument to the lasting influence of one of the world's ancient civilizations is Sumeria's legacy. The Sumerian civilization has had a lasting impact on human history that is still felt today, from its contributions to writing, mathematics, and law to its innovations in governance and religion. This section will examine the lasting impact of Sumerian civilization and discuss how it influenced other cultures, civilizations, and the contemporary globe. The ability to write is arguably the Sumerian civilization's most significant lasting contribution, as it paved the way for the creation of record-keeping and written communication systems still in use today. The Sumerians created the cuneiform writing system, representing words, syllables, and concepts with wedge-shaped characters engraved into clay tablets. This groundbreaking invention made it possible to document business dealings, agreements between parties, official correspondence, and literary works, safeguarding Sumerian society's collective knowledge and insight for posterity. Beyond Mesopotamia's boundaries, Sumerian writing has left a lasting legacy that influenced the creation of writing systems in nearby Egypt, Anatolia, and the Indus Valley. The Phoenician alphabet, which gave rise to the Greek, Latin, and Cyrillic alphabets used in modern languages worldwide, was developed using the cuneiform script as a model for alphabetic writing systems. The Sumerians' innovative efforts in creating writing would have had a significant negative impact on the transfer of ideas, culture, and knowledge between generations and civilizations. Apart from their literary accomplishments, the Sumerians also made noteworthy advances in mathematics and astronomy, establishing the foundation for advancing scientific research and empirical observation in succeeding societies. During their time, the Sumerians achieved unmatched advances in arithmetic, geometry, and algebra, and created a complex numerical system based on the sexagesimal system, which counted in multiples of 60. Developing mathematical ideas like fractions, ratios, and proportions, applied in various real-world contexts like architecture, engineering, and business, is evidence of the Sumerian mathematical heritage. Along with their significant contributions to astronomy, the Sumerians laid the groundwork for later civilizations to study celestial phenomena by creating precise calendars based on observations of the sun, moon, and stars. In addition, Sumerian civilization made a significant contribution to the evolution of administrative, governmental, and legal frameworks that still influence contemporary society. The Code of Hammurabi and the renowned Code of Ur-Nammu, which codified laws, rules, and punishments for various offenses and established a framework for justice and accountability in Sumerian society, were among the first written legal codes to be established by humans. The principles of justice, equity, and due process ingrained in international constitutions and legal codes are all products of Sumerian law, which has left a lasting impact on contemporary legal systems. Modern legal systems and institutions are still built on the same fundamental ideas that Sumerian legal texts first expressed: justice, equality before the law, and the rule of law. The enduring cultural and religious traditions of Sumerian civilization are also a testament to its legacy, as they continue to inspire modern-day spirituality, literature, and art. The prolific Sumerians wrote epic tales like the Epic of Gilgamesh, which tackled themes of bravery, mortality, and the human condition. These tales set the standard for literary storytelling in later cultures and civilizations. The pantheon of gods and goddesses, the ornate rituals and ceremonies, the belief in divine judgment, and the afterlife are all remnants of Sumerian religion. Many of the theological themes and ideas that the Sumerians originated, like the creation myth, the story of the flood, and the notion of a divine council, were taken up and modified by other cultures, such as the Babylonians, Assyrians, and Persians. They are still prevalent in contemporary religious traditions. The enduring legacy of Sumerian civilization is a testament to the remarkable achievements and contributions of one of the world's earliest and most influential civilizations. From its invention of writing and contributions to mathematics and astronomy, to its innovations in law, governance, and religion, Sumerian civilization has left an indelible mark on human history that continues to shape the world we inhabit today. As we reflect on the enduring legacy of Sumeria, we gain a deeper appreciation for the richness, diversity, and complexity of ancient Mesopotamian culture and the enduring impact of its achievements on subsequent generations and civilizations. The legacy of Sumeria extends far beyond the borders of ancient Mesopotamia, shaping the course of human history and laying the foundation for future civilizations. Sumerian innovations in various fields, including writing, mathematics, governance, architecture, and religion, have left an indelible mark on subsequent cultures and civilizations, influencing everything from language and law to science and spirituality. This section will explore how Sumerian innovations influenced future civilizations, tracing their impact across time and space. One of Sumeria's most enduring legacies is its invention of writing and the development of the cuneiform script, one of the earliest known writing systems in human history. Sumerian scribes used wedge-shaped symbols impressed onto clay tablets to record administrative, economic, and religious information, creating a written record that could be preserved and transmitted over generations. The invention of writing revolutionized communication, administration, and education, enabling the storage and dissemination of knowledge and ideas on a scale never before possible. The influence of Sumerian writing and cuneiform script can be seen in the development of subsequent writing systems, including the Akkadian, Babylonian, Assyrian, and Persian scripts, which adopted and adapted many of the principles and symbols of Sumerian writing. The legacy of cuneiform script endured for millennia, surviving long after the decline of Sumerian civilization and influencing the development of alphabetic writing systems in the Near East, including the Phoenician, Hebrew, and Aramaic scripts. Sumerian mathematics significantly contributed to the development of arithmetic, geometry, and algebra, laying the groundwork for future advancements in mathematics and science. The Sumerians devised a sophisticated number notation system based on a base 60 or sexagesimal system, which aided computations involving fractions, proportions, and ratios. This system, which divided the circle into 360 degrees and the hour into 60 minutes, formed the basis of our modern system of time measurement and geometric angles. The influence of Sumerian mathematics can be seen in the development of subsequent mathematical concepts and techniques, including the use of fractions, decimals, and geometric shapes in architecture, engineering, and astronomy. The sexagesimal system, with its emphasis on division by 60 and multiples thereof, became the standard for measuring time, angles, and geographic coordinates in ancient and medieval civilizations, including the Babylonians, Greeks, and Romans, and continues to be used in modern contexts such as timekeeping, navigation, and trigonometry. Sumerian innovations in governance and legal systems laid the foundation for the emergence of complex communities and centralized states in the ancient Near East. The Sumerians established the world's first known city-states, such as Uruk, Ur, and Lagash, governed by kings and councils responsible for administering justice, collecting taxes, and maintaining public order. They also developed one of the earliest known legal codes, the Code of Ur-Nammu, which codified laws and regulations governing various aspects of Sumerian society. The influence of Sumerian governance and legal systems can be seen in developing subsequent political institutions and legal traditions, including the Akkadian, Babylonian, and Assyrian empires, which adopted and adapted many of the principles and practices of Sumerian administration and jurisprudence. The legacy of Sumerian legal codes endured for centuries, shaping the development of legal systems in the ancient Near East and influencing later civilizations, including the Hebrews, Greeks, and Romans, who incorporated elements of Sumerian law into their legal traditions. Sumerian innovations in architecture and urban planning changed the landscape of ancient Mesopotamia, giving rise to some of the world's earliest and most remarkable architectural masterpieces. The ziggurats, terraced temple complexes made of mud brick and embellished with sculptures and painted reliefs, are a defining feature of Sumerian cities. These monumental structures served as religious centers, administrative hubs, and symbols of Sumerian power and prosperity. The influence of Sumerian architecture can be observed in the development of following architectural styles and building techniques, including mud brick construction, vaulted arches, and buttressed walls across Mesopotamia and beyond. With its stepped pyramid shape and tiered platforms, the ziggurat rose to prominence as a representation of heavenly power and civic pride, spurring other cultures to build colossal temples and palaces in the style of Sumerian masterpieces. Sumerian innovations in religion and mythology laid the foundation for the development of complex religious beliefs and rituals in the ancient Near East. The Sumerians worshipped a pantheon of gods and goddesses including Anu, Enlil, and Inanna, believed to control the forces of nature and destiny. They also wrote epic tales and myths, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh, which examined themes of heroism, mortality, and the human condition. The influence of Sumerian religion and mythology can be seen in developing subsequent religious traditions and mythological motifs, including the creation myths, flood narratives, and divine epics found in the religious texts of neighboring cultures such as the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, themes of friendship, loss, and the search for immortality resonated with later civilizations and inspired literary and artistic works across time and space. The legacy of Sumeria is enormous and complex, involving advances in writing, mathematics, governance, architecture, and religion that continue to affect our world today. Sumerian contributions to human civilization established the groundwork for subsequent achievements in science, technology, culture, and society, affecting everything from language and law to art and architecture. By exploring how Sumerian innovations influenced succeeding civilizations, we obtain vital insights into the continuing legacy of one of the world's earliest and most influential civilizations on the path of human history. The study of ancient Mesopotamia, frequently called the cradle of civilization, holds tremendous relevance in comprehending human history. Mesopotamia, which is located between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, gave rise to some of the world's first written languages, legal systems, and urban centers. This part will emphasize how important it is to study ancient Mesopotamia in order to understand human history in its entirety, as well as how it has influenced social, political, economic, and cultural advancements. Many believe Mesopotamia was the cradle of civilization, setting the groundwork for structured human society thousands of years ago. Large-scale urban societies with specialized labor, intricate social hierarchies, and centralized government replaced small-scale farming settlements with the rise of urban centers like Uruk, Ur, and Eridu. By researching the evolution of early Mesopotamian towns and civilizations, scholars gain insights into urbanization, state creation, and cultural integration that established the framework for succeeding civilizations worldwide. The development of writing in ancient Mesopotamia is one of its most enduring contributions. It transformed record-keeping, administration, and communication. Around 3500 BCE, the Sumerians, the first people to live in Mesopotamia, developed cuneiform script, which they used to record transactions, contracts, laws, and literary works. The symbols were wedge-shaped and were impressed onto clay tablets. One of the oldest pieces of literature still in existence, the Epic of Gilgamesh, was written in ancient Mesopotamia and provides insights into the region's mythology, religion, and cultural values. Scholars can learn much about the beginnings of literacy, literature, and intellectual culture in human history by researching the evolution of writing and literature in ancient Mesopotamia. Scientific and technological innovation flourished in ancient Mesopotamia, where groundbreaking discoveries and inventions revolutionized daily life and set the stage for later breakthroughs. For instance, the Sumerians achieved significant advances in mathematics by creating a complex system of mathematical procedures, geometric concepts, and numerical notation. They also made strides in astronomy, creating calendars, forecasting heavenly occurrences, and charting the motions of the planets and stars. Researchers can learn more about the history of mathematics, astronomy, and engineering, and the practical uses of science in prehistoric cultures by examining ancient Mesopotamia's scientific and technological accomplishments. Some of history's earliest political and legal systems originated in ancient Mesopotamia, including written laws, administrative organizations, and bureaucratic structures. One of the most well-known instances of early Mesopotamian law is the Code of Hammurabi, authored by the Babylonian monarch Hammurabi, circa 1754 BCE. It offers a detailed set of rules and penalties for numerous infractions. The centralized governments and ruling dynasties that emerged in Mesopotamia built the groundwork for later political structures like monarchy, bureaucracy, and the judiciary. Scholars can learn more about the beginnings of law, government, and political structure in human societies by examining ancient Mesopotamia's legal and political systems. A diverse range of cultural and religious traditions, including mythology, rituals, and spiritual beliefs that influenced the residents' worldview, could be found in ancient Mesopotamia. The pantheon of gods and goddesses that the Sumerians, Babylonians, and Assyrians worshipped was connected to various facets of nature, fertility, and the afterlife. Mesopotamian cosmology, ethics, and religious practices can be understood through the epic narratives of gods, heroes, and monsters in Mesopotamian mythology, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Enuma Elish. By examining ancient Mesopotamia's cultural and religious customs, researchers can understand the roots of religious conviction, ceremonial customs, and cultural identity within human communities. Understanding the genesis of civilization and the larger picture of human history requires an in-depth study of ancient Mesopotamia. The creation of writing, the emergence of urban centers, and the expansion of science and technology were all influenced by ancient Mesopotamia, and these events significantly shaped human civilization. Through analyzing the social, political, economic, and cultural advancements in ancient Mesopotamia, researchers understand the intricacies of prehistoric human communities and the lasting impact of one of the most significant and ancient civilizations globally. We leave Sumeria with a great deal of knowledge and understanding of the intricate workings of prehistoric cultures. We have seen the glories and tragedies of humanity's oldest civilizations and the rise and collapse of entire empires. We have examined the pinnacles of human accomplishment and the depths of human weakness. In the process, we have developed a greater respect for the human spirit's resiliency, inventiveness, and resilience. In the pages that follow, we shall consider the lessons we have discovered during our exploration of Sumerian civilization. We'll think about how its legacy affects modern society and how it relates to the potential and problems of the modern era. With a fresh resolve to carry this ancient civilization's flame on into the future, we wish it farewell, with thanks for the insights it has bestowed upon us. The Sumerians produced a comprehensive system of mathematical algorithms, geometric concepts, and numerical notation, among other notable contributions to mathematics. They also made strides in astronomy, creating calendars, forecasting heavenly occurrences, and charting the motions of the planets and stars. Some of the earliest political and legal systems in history, including written laws, administrative organizations, and bureaucratic structures, emerged from Sumeria. One of the most well-known instances of early Mesopotamian law is the Code of Hammurabi, authored by the Babylonian monarch Hammurabi circa 1754 BCE. It offers a detailed set of rules and penalties for numerous infractions. The emergence of centralized administrations and ruling families paved the way for later political structures, including the monarchy, bureaucracy, and judicial branch. Sumeria practiced diverse cultural and religious customs such as mythology, rituals, and spiritual beliefs, influencing people's worldviews. The pantheon of gods and goddesses that the Sumerians, Babylonians, and Assyrians worshipped was connected to various facets of nature, fertility, and the afterlife. Mesopotamian mythology's epic tales of gods, heroes, and monsters provide insights into the region's cosmology, morality, and religious customs. Sumeria's imprint is still felt in modern society, influencing our expectations for the future and how we perceive the past. Scholars, historians, and fans share astonishment, amazement, and curiosity at Sumeria's innovations and accomplishments, which have left an enduring mark on human history and culture. Lessons from the growth and fall of Sumerian civilization are a constant reminder of the interdependence and fragility of human cultures, the value of cross-cultural communication and cooperation, and the never-ending pursuit of knowledge and understanding. Studying Sumerian civilization can help us understand the intricacies of ancient societies and the continuing legacy of human ingenuity and innovation. By analyzing Sumeria's accomplishments and struggles, we can better understand the variety and depth of human culture and the significant influence of civilization on the planet we live on. We take the lessons learned from the successes and failures of Sumerian civilization as we bid it farewell, motivating us to keep searching for more information, insight, and advancement in the ever-changing narrative of human history. The Sumerian civilization represents a turning point in human history, leaving a lasting legacy that motivates and influences modern culture. When we consider Sumeria's importance, we see a tapestry woven with innovative, resilient, and culturally rich threads that have irrevocably shaped the globe. This section delves into the diverse implications of Sumerian culture, examining its lasting influence across multiple fields of human pursuits. Nestled in the lush plains of Mesopotamia, the Sumerians created the foundation for some of the most significant advances in human history. They paved the way for the emergence of complex societies by being the first to build long-term settlements and urban centers. When writing was invented, they could communicate across great distances, chronicle history, and convey information. Their contributions to mathematics, astronomy, and engineering established the groundwork for further scientific breakthroughs. The Sumerians blazed the way for the advancement of human civilization. The Sumerian civilization left behind a rich and diverse cultural and intellectual legacy that included philosophy, religion, art, and literature. The ageless themes of bravery, love, and mortality in the epic stories of Gilgamesh, Enki, and Inanna never enthrall audiences. Sumerian art provides a glimpse into the aesthetic sensibilities of ancient Mesopotamia through its elaborate ceramics, bronze sculptures, and ornamental patterns. The pantheon of gods and goddesses, which was the focal point of Sumerian religious rites and beliefs, has had a lasting influence on the spiritual practices of other cultures. The Sumerians left a rich cultural legacy that still inspires and improves our lives today. The Sumerians were expert builders, creating colossal constructions that attested to their inventiveness and skill. The central hubs of Sumerian towns were the ziggurats, enormous temple complexes devoted to god worship, signifying the union of heaven and earth. The city of Ur's intricate alleys, vibrant marketplaces, and opulent palaces demonstrated the high level of Sumerian urban design. The Sumerians could harness the power of the rivers and turn desert regions into lush oases because of their mastery of irrigation techniques, which included building canals and dikes. Modern architects and urban planners are still amazed and motivated by the architectural wonders and masterful urban planning that the Sumerians left behind. The Sumerians were forerunners in governance and law, creating the framework for the emergence of political and legal structures that would influence the history of humanity. A complete system of laws and rules regulating many facets of Sumerian society was documented in the Code of Ur-Nammu, one of the oldest legal systems in history. The Sumerians could preserve peace and order in their cities and regions by establishing bureaucratic institutions and centralized regimes. The idea of divine kingship, in which kings were viewed as go-betweens between the gods and people, significantly impacted Mesopotamian political systems and others later. Essentially, the Sumerians laid the groundwork for later political and judicial systems by offering a model for the structure and management of complex civilizations. Beyond the confines of ancient Mesopotamia, the Sumerian civilization left a lasting legacy that influenced many of the cultures, religions, and civilizations that came after it. The writing systems utilized by later civilizations in the Near East and elsewhere were modeled after the Sumerian cuneiform script. The literature, art, and philosophy of ancient Greece, Rome, and Egypt all referenced the Sumerians' myths, tales, and religious beliefs. Later Near Eastern and Mediterranean architectural styles were influenced by the architectural breakthroughs of the Sumerians, such as the use of vaulted arches and mud brick buildings. Overall, Sumerian culture had a profound and long-lasting influence on human civilization, leaving an irreversible mark on the cultural landscape. It is impossible to exaggerate the importance of the Sumerian culture. Sumeria has made a lasting impression on the world through its groundbreaking contributions to civilization and rich cultural and intellectual heritage. The accomplishments and innovations of the Sumerians have a lasting impact on modern culture as a constant reminder of the limitless potential of human creativity and the never-ending pursuit of knowledge. We better understand the intricacies of prehistoric societies and the enduring legacy of human civilization as we consider the significance of Sumeria. As we end our voyage through the chronicles of Sumerian culture and the rich tapestry of Mesopotamian history, we are left feeling tremendous amazement at the breadth and complexity of this ancient world. But even as we say goodbye to Sumeria's old civilization, our investigation into Mesopotamia's rich past is far from finished. This section invites experts, students, and enthusiasts to explore this fascinating area of human history as we promote more research on the many facets of Mesopotamian culture, society, and legacy. Some of the world's most ancient and impressive cities, such as Uruk, Ur, and Babylon, were located in Mesopotamia. These cities had distinct histories, architectural styles, and rich cultural legacies. Many archaeological riches are hidden in these old urban centers' winding streets and tall ziggurats just waiting to be discovered. Scholars can reconstruct Mesopotamia's urban past and gain insight into its people's everyday routines, beliefs, and ambitions by carrying out excavations, surveys, and examinations of ancient city sites. At approximately 3500 BCE, the Sumerians created the cuneiform script, which is still among the world's earliest writing systems. However, many cuneiform corpora still need to be translated and explored after centuries of scientific research. Scholars can gain new insights into Mesopotamian literature, law, religion, and administration by continuing their attempts to translate and interpret cuneiform texts. This will enhance our knowledge of this ancient civilization and its contributions to human history. Ancient scholars and craftspeople in Mesopotamia produced groundbreaking discoveries and innovations that influenced human history, making the region a hotbed of scientific and technological innovation. Mesopotamian contributions to science and technology were numerous and varied, ranging from the creation of the wheel and the plow to the development of mathematical algorithms and astronomical observations. By implementing scientific experiments, reconstructions, and studies of ancient objects and writings, researchers can enhance their comprehension of Mesopotamian scientific accomplishments and their relevance to contemporary society. People from all origins and beliefs came together and interacted in Mesopotamia, a melting pot of varied cultures, religions, and customs. A rich tapestry of cultural and theological diversity is waiting to be discovered in the pantheon of Mesopotamian gods and goddesses, the epic stories of heroes and monsters, and the rituals and ceremonies of religious worship. Scholars can learn more about Mesopotamian cosmology, mythology, and ritual practice by analyzing religious texts, iconography, and archaeological data. This broadens our understanding of prehistoric ideas and worldviews. Even though Mesopotamia is a far-off place in history, its influence can still be felt in discussions and arguments today, influencing how we see everything from politics and economics to religion and identity. Scholars can contribute to current conversations and debates on issues like cultural appropriation, the preservation of cultural heritage, and the influence of ancient civilizations on contemporary communities by studying Mesopotamian history. By applying the knowledge of Mesopotamian history to the problems and possibilities of the modern world, researchers can deepen our comprehension of the past and guide our choices in the future. Hoping you enjoyed this video and found it informative, I invite you to like it and subscribe to the channel. Additionally, we have made another video about the entire history of London. Click on the video on the screen to watch it now. If you would like a specific video on a certain historical period or an ancient civilization, let us know in the comments below.